Hey, everybody, welcome to Tattooed in Business. I'm your host, Brian Merrell, and this is our weekly episode of Tattooed in Business. Want to start out with a question that I keep getting asked every time somebody runs into me, or family members, or everybody. Everyone says, "What's wrong with my eyes?" Okay. And it, I guess I'm used to it, but so I have what's called vitiligo, which is where you lose pigment in your skin. So what's wrong with my eyes is I lost the pigment around my eye orbits. Even my I when I close my eyes, there's no pigment there. So so as I get more in the sun and I get more tan, I get more based or whatever, it's going to stand out more. So my hands have always been pretty bad, but now my eyes have gotten there. And actually, every place that there's white hair on my face is the same thing. It's just there's no pigment there. So that's what's wrong with my eyes. So please quit fucking asking because it is kind of annoying. And it's not. Don't worry, it's not contagious, guys. But no, it does get annoying to get asked what's wrong with my eyes all the time. But there's nothing wrong with my eyes. Okay, it's just that it's a thing that some people get. So, anyhow, back on this week's topic. So, this week's topic is words that changed my life, and this is true story. Really, what happened to me that kind of sparked everything in my life early on to change directions from where I thought I wanted to be as a kid, where I thought I was going to end up, and realizing that some things were just not for me. So, unfortunately, this last week, my uncle passed away. He had ALS. We found out over a year, just shy of a year and a half ago, and they gave him basically 2 years, and he lost his fight this last week. My uncle Johnny was to me the ultimate family man, right? Um, and I don't mean to dig on anyone who does this by any means, but like so when I was growing up, if my dad had a softball game, golf tournament, whatever, something like that, that's what we did. Plain and simple, that's what we did. We had to go to that. We had to, sit around and wait or whatever, and that was his enjoyment. My uncle Johnny, total opposite. If he was going to play in a golf tournament or whatever, softball, whatever, and his kids had something coming up, his wife, her family, or there was a family activity versus doing those individual things or those team things like that, he would take those. He cared more about that time with his family than he did about playing with the boys, so to say, or hanging with the guys or whatever. Not that he didn't like to do that. Um, my Uncle Johnny was kind of like one of the lives of the party, just about every place you went. Um, yeah, beautiful family. I just mean inside and out, just good hearts, good demeanor, good looking kids. You know, my Aunt Debbie is, like I said, is one of my favorite human beings on the face of this earth. Always has been, always will be, whether I'm around or not. Um, and I hope she's always known that. I hope my Uncle Johnny knew that. When we were kids, my uncle used to play, and I mean like little kids, like pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. My brother and I would wait for him to get home from school when we were at my grandmother's, and we he basically we would pretend that we used to watch Tom and Jerry all the time. So they had Thomas the cat and then Jerry the mouse, and I forget what his little other mouse was called. But my brother and I would basically take all the pillows in the house, pretend they were like pieces of cheese or something like that, and we would like just like sneak around my Uncle Johnny or try to like, so it became a game where he like pretend he was sleeping or something like that, and we try to sneak up on him and he chase us or grab us, or you know what I mean. And it used to yell out, "I hate Mises" to pieces, just like they did in that, and we used to think that was the funniest thing in the world. My Uncle Johnny was 12, only like 12 years older than me, so he would have been in like seventh grade, sixth grade, something like that. And but he used to play with us, and you know it was it was one of those funny things that we just really enjoyed. And that was the message he gave my aunt to give to me. And it's kind of funny because the only ones who really would know about that was my brother, me. I'm sure if my grandparents were alive, they might. My grandmother will remember, but it was like just this inside thing for us. Just like my uncle David and we have this thing with, I don't know, Brandon, my cousin Brandon and Heather can remember. There's no way Lizzie could, but when we would stay with them during our divorce. My I can't even remember how we did it, but we were joking around one night, and he found this little baby doll, and he made up a character's voice to him, and then he'd pick up the back of his leg, and it had like this weird little like plastic knot. So we called the doll Yucky Back Knee. And, and it's been like this ongoing joke. Brandon seemed to remember it quite a bit, but like it was like this hilarious thing that we had going. So when my uncle David and Aunt Rosie and my cousins there, Brandon, Heather, and Elizabeth, that'll always be like our thing is the Yucky Back Knee, right? Where my Uncle Johnny, one of the things I would say would have been our thing was always that I hate Mises to Pieces and Tom and Jerry. And it's funny, I tried to stay away this last year knowing that he was sick and not getting better because one, I was angry. I didn't want to face it. And when you see him, then you have to face it. And I had a guy that I'd known that I got to be friends with when I saw Harley's, Waterman, who went through the same thing. And I remember seeing him when he came out to his memorial ride and just the look on his face, and I didn't want to see that on my Uncle Johnny because I always remembered him as always smiling, strong, and everything. And it goes to what I'm talking about tonight. So I'm very fortunate and I'm very grateful in life to have what I have and be where I'm at. My life isn't perfect by any means. It is, I tell people, some people would love to have my life, others would never be able to handle it. Things I've gone through, I don't bullshit. I don't make up the things that happened to me. I'm not proud of the way I've acted in the past and the people that I've wronged and things I've done. But that's life sometimes, and it happens. So the only thing you do is try to move forward and do better. So when I was in high school and graduated, I've told you probably the story millions of times at this point, but I had a really rough go about when I graduated school because, like when you're in high school, everyone kind of, babies you or guides you or directs you and everything. And back in our time, we were taught either you go to college or you're nobody or you're nothing. Or you're not going to make any money. You're not going to do anything or all this stuff. So I tried to get to the Army originally and I failed the drug test. I hurt my knee as well, but what happened, why they rejected me, my understanding was I failed the drug test. And so I decided I wasn't going to go in. And then that whole summer, when everyone's getting ready to go to college, and I was getting ready to go to college too, and I kept thinking, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want to be. I don't know who I am. I don't know any of these things yet. I don't want to go to college. And I dropped out immediately and came home. Everybody was very vocal how disappointed they were in me, what I did, and telling me what I needed to do, what I have to do. You have to go back to college. You have to do that. You have to do that. And I'd sit there and say, you know what? I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that. And I was doing bad things, and and I'm sure that wasn't a secret to everybody. But I'd also gotten clean, and I was trying to straighten my life out, and I just kept thinking, how do I stay out of this path? And I remember there was a family get together where everybody was just ragging on me, giving me a hard time. And it was early because it was just before I joined, but so it had to be like Labor Day or something like that, something around there. And everybody was just really in my face telling me how I screwed up, how to fix it, what I need to do, all these things. And I remember sitting down and my Uncle Johnny just sat down by me. We were, And I said, I goes, your turn? It says, your turn to give me shit and tell me what I threw away or how rotten I am and all this and what I should be working on. And he was just calm as could be. And he looked at me and he says, do you have a plan? And I sat there and I said, what do you mean? He goes, do you have a plan? He goes, you thought enough about dropping out of school. You thought enough about what you're gonna do, right? What do you have a plan? And I said, well, I think I know it. And he goes, no, either you have a plan and you're going to act on it or you don't. And I said, well, this is what I've been thinking. I said, and no one has asked me this. I said, I think I'm going to try to go back in the Army. And he says, okay, why? I said, I need to get away and I need to find myself. I said, I need structure. I need something to get me back, to get me on the track or something. I just want to get away. And he says, so you have a plan then, don't you? He goes, that's what his life is about. He said, he goes, you don't have to go to school. You don't have to do these things. He says, but you need to always have a plan. He said, and your plan is going to change. That's okay. But what is changing, it better be changing into a new plan. And those words I've never, ever forgotten. There's very few things that people have said to me that I've never forgotten. That was one of the first real life lessons I truly remember having that was significant in the outcome of my life. Because from that point forward, I committed to going in the Army. Now, I just took a job that they offered me because I just wanted to get the hell out of town and move on and whatnot. But it shaped me because when I came home, that was the other thing. So while I was gone, my uncle had this Ford Blue Mustang, and I loved it. I loved that color, loved that car, and he decided he was going to sell it. And so I'm away, and I mean, he could have got a way more. He sold me this Mustang for $1,500 and held it for 4 months for me to come home. At that time, that Mustang would have sold for about $5,000 to $6,000. But he didn't owe anything on it. He paid it off and everything. You know what I mean? It was paid. It had low. Well, back in the day, we would probably consider it high mileage, but that's because we didn't know that cars could go 200,000 miles. He had custom rims on it. I mean, it was beautiful, and he held it for me. And people offered him money. People tried to buy it. Him and my Aunt Debbie held it for me. They waited for me to complete what I told them I was going to do. And when I did, that was like my reward was for him to hang on to that for me. And then sure enough, I, young and dumb, wrecked it, didn't change the sport rims on it. And I wound up wrecking it. And truth is, whether him and his wife have known it, is I've been on the hunt for a replacement one of those since then. There's 3 cars I want that I want before I die. And one of them is a Pontiac Fiero to give back to my dad. Because when I graduated high school, my dad had just lost his job. And he really didn't have the money for a gift. So he had this Pontiac Fiero that he was like his little baby on the weekend type thing, had like no miles on it. And he gave it to me for graduation. Big thing how he tried to justify it a little bit to himself was, he said, well, Brian, when you go to college, he says, you got to have a car. If you don't have a nice car, then, it's just, you're going to see it's just, how they treat you is totally different. But he did it for why he did. And next would have been my Uncle Danny's had this freaking Pontiac Trans Am T-Top. I freaking loved it. Like it's Smokey the Bandit, but red, that he bought off one of his friend's brothers. And that is my dream car. I always want one of those. I want one of those so bad. And then, of course, the other is this blue Mustang. I want this blue Mustang in 88 body is what I wanted. I wanted it to be that Ford blue, and I was trying to find one before, before my uncle passed. Um, some fuckhead on Marketplace, of course, would not return a message when I told him I was interested in one and I wanted to come get it. He would not return my messages, so that sucked. Only one I found. But that was those are three things that are important to me. But my uncle Johnny, those words, always have a plan, and it's okay when the plan changes as long as you have another plan you're going into. Those are words that'll stick with me for the rest of my life, and it made a difference, like I said, in everything I do. And where it circles back to is every time I've ever left, changed, shifted gears, I always had a plan. And that's why I think I found success moving forward. When I decided to go to be a physical therapist assistant, I kind of knew that's not where I was going to end up. But when I shifted gears to go into business, I had a game plan on what I was going to do. Sales was not necessarily the vision. I think I was looking to be more of a marketer, but I got in the sales side and I loved it. And having that mentality of having a plan, sticking to it, and be on the shift, that didn't come from being in the military, guys. That didn't come from, anything other than the conversation my uncle and I had, and then just taking a look at his life and how he lived. And it's funny is he was one of the hardest workers I'd ever freaking met. Be honest with you, all my uncles are like that. Both sides of my family, work ethic is never something that's ever been questioned in our families. But he was a energetic go-getter, and I used to pick at him all the time and tell him, you definitely knocked it out of your comfort zone when you landed Aunt Debbie. But that's because we loved Debbie so much. My brother and I were young, and she used to work at my dad's store. We used to, like try to hang out. She was like that. She was the cool one. She was the cool one and the fun one. And plus anything we told her that, that our dad hated, she did. So like we told her how he hated the Dodgers. Next time we see her, she's wearing a Dodgers hat, and it was kind of always funny like that. But so my uncle Johnny and Aunt Debbie met through the store. My uncle was painting the roof of the building I can't remember, it was peeling or something. So he got hired to paint the roof of the steel building on a weekend or something like that. We might have been summer break, but my brother and I were down there, and because we liked Debbie, we kept basically, I don't know, like, I don't even remember what we were doing, but basically going back and forth between the two of them all day, setting them up, or trying to set them up, I should say. But it's because just because we liked hanging out with Debbie, we thought Debbie was cool, and it's just amazing how things worked out. And I think it was 2 years later, maybe 2 years later, we were in their wedding, and we were little at the time. I remember my older brother, me, and my cousin Brandon standing there, and in our suits and stuff, and it was it was a great time. But he was a man who I think lived by those words, and him just passing that on to me, saying it to me, meant a lot. But I never forgot him, John. Never once forgot him, and I still tell my kids the same thing. I tell my son this all the time, and I know my son's going to come out on top, whatever it is he does. He committed to losing weight. He was 1 year ago. I posted a picture of my son and daughter and I, and it's my Facebook background profile. That was my son 1 year ago. If he ever comes home and I can take a picture of his ass and post it up, Brock went from 340 pounds to 185 pounds in 1 year. In less than a year, really. He's been maintaining a little bit. I don't think I've ever had that fortitude to be able to do that in my life. And he had a game plan, and he's sticking to it. My daughter, she's working on her second degree, and couldn't be more proud of her. She it was a little bit of a fight to get her to go back to school after her mom died. She didn't know what to do. Didn't know when she needed time. And I pushed her, and I pushed her hard. And I pushed her hard to go into school. And now she has a game plan. And as soon as she accomplishes one, she starts another one and keeps going and keeps going. And I'm proud of her and her boyfriend, DJ. He's a great guy. I really appreciate him, the way what he has done and put up with. I've been in that world that he just had to live in. But it's just having that game plan. And the sad part is right now, if you ask me what my game plan is I know for work, I always know my work game plan. It's everything else in life I don't know. I know what I would like, but I don't set a game plan. But that being said, this is a memory of my Uncle Johnny. John Merrell, just like I said, he's just an amazing person. What I loved today at the viewing was when you looked at all those pictures that they had posted. He's never alone. He either had his wife in his arms or his kids. And I guess my game plan or my wish in life is to finish that way in life. I mean, you had everything, and I'm going to miss you. All right. So everyone, good night. Have a great week and enjoy. All right. This was Tattooed in Business. I'm out.